Hi, welcome to Boss Digit class. Today, we will talk about the present simple tense. So the present simple tense is a tense that we use to describe things, activities in the present, right? Okay, the structure, what does it look like? What does this present simple tense look like? For positive statements or sentences, the structure for the to be is subject, am, is, or are plus predicate. For example, I am Andrew. I am a teacher. Positive for verbs, Andrew is a teacher, or Dad likes apples, right? The negative is almost the same with this, but with a not. I am not an engineer, for example, right? She, with verbs, she doesn't like apples. So like is the base form, right? And for questions, interrogative form, for the to be, is MR plus subject. Is she, so for example, is the subject, she happy, for example, right? Or the verbs do or does plus subject plus verb for object. Does she like apples? For example, do they play football? Right? Okay, let's take a look at specific structures for he, she, it, right? And singular nouns. So there's some spelling rules here. With most verbs, just add S. So for example, he lives in Jakarta. She sits in that new chair. The dog, it stays in the house, for example, right? But for words ending in the consonant plus Y, then we need to change Y to I and then we add ES. So for example, she tries nasi goreng. She tries to eat nasi goreng, for example. Fried rice. She tries to eat fried rice. He carries the sick dog to the vet, for example. He carries, look, right? Look at this change. And then for verbs that end in S, Z, CH, or X, we add ES. So for example, she misses him. She misses her husband. Her husband is traveling, for example. He catches the ball, right? He catches the ball. He fixes the roof. Dad fixes the roof, for example, right? So we add ES. So but there are some exceptions here with go and do. For example, he goes to the restaurant. Tommy goes to the restaurant. Or with does here. Does, what do we say? Does, so for example, the question is, does she like pancakes? Yes, she does, right? Yes, she does. All right. So, okay, when do we use the present simple tense? First, when we're talking about, we use present simple tense when we're talking about habits, right? Habits are something that we do frequently or continuously. So for example, I always drink coffee at work. So if we want to talk about habits, we use the present simple tense. She gets up at 7 a.m. every day, right? Okay, the second time we use the present simple tense is when we want to say something that is true in the present. He works on Wall Street. It's true in the present, it's true now, right? Grandma is 60 years old. This is true now. We live in New York, or we live in Jakarta, or Bandung, or Surabaya, or wherever, or Medan. And number 3 is when we want to describe general facts or truth. For example, the earth is not flat. It's a scientific fact, right? It's a general fact. The sun rises in the east. Rises is, the sun is it, right? Rises is the verb for present simple tense. The sun rises in the east. It's always true. The sun never rises from the west, right? And number 4 is when we want to talk about future timetables or schedules. I know. This sounds weird, right? We're using present simple tense, present, but why future, right? Present tense, but why future? It's only when we want to talk about fixed schedules, right? Fixed schedule. So for example, my train arrives tomorrow. It's a fixed schedule from for example, the train company, that the train will arrive tomorrow, or the train arrives tomorrow. So we fly to Paris on Monday. Classes begin next week from the school. And the other point is that we use the present simple tense to talk about, we use the present simple tense after time words, or the cool way of saying it is the subordinate clauses of time. Like, for example, when, until, after, before, as soon as. So example here, I will talk to John. Will is future, right? When I see him. See is present, right? Present simple tense. Simple present tense. When I see him, I will talk to John before he leaves. Right? Before he leaves. Okay? You understand? Okay, the timeline. Let's visualize the timeline using this line. When does it happen? When does the present simple tense happen? Activities happen. It happens for habits or repeated actions. Look at this X. What does it mean? X, 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 X. It means that it's a habit. What is habit? What is a habit? A habit is a repeated action, right? I eat, I eat, I eat, I eat. Facts and generalizations. Remember the general truth from the previous slide? The sun rises from the east, right? It's always true. That's why it's a line like this. Line, right? And then remember the fixed schedule, schedule future event. It is, the X is on the right hand of the line because this right side describes the future. My plane lands at 11:20, right? Okay. The first timeline, second and third time, okay? All right, time signals. What are the key words that we often use when we want to talk about the present simple tense? We use this, the adverbs of frequency, or the expressions of frequency. What is frequency? Frequency is how often. If it's 100% of the time, we say always. I always wake up before 12 noon, right? I always wake up in the morning before 12 noon. So you never wake up, after 12 noon, jam 12 siang, never, right? I usually walk to the office, for example, if 90%. 70% often. I often watch TV. Maybe on several days, maybe you don't watch it on Thursdays, for example. So you often watch TV. Sometimes it's 50%. So sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. I often go outside the city, for example, right? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Hardly ever. I hardly ever eat peaches, for example. I hardly ever eat peaches. It's something that you, out of 100 days of your life, for example, only 10 days you've done it, right? Never is zero. So for example, I never drive a car. For example, if you are below 17 and you don't have a driver's license, I never drive. I never drive. Something that you never do, right? Or we can use how often as in every or once or twice or 3 times, 4 times a month, right? So I play tennis every week. I play tennis once a week, for example, once a month. I take a vacation every year, right? Okay. Because we're talking about habits, remember? When we talk about habits, then we need to communicate. We need to say how often are we doing those habits, right? Okay, that's the end. Thank you for learning about the present simple tense. Goodbye.